Welcome to the Burned Out Preacher podcast, where we have frank discussions weekly on ministry struggles and how many of us in the ministry have gone from overwhelmed and exhausted to calm and equipped leaders who love being in ministry. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson, burnout prevention coach for ministry leaders. Are you ready to overcome burnout? If your answer is yes, then keep listening. Welcome back to the Burned Out Preacher podcast. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson. I am a burnout prevention coach for ministry leaders. And I help ministry leaders go from overwhelmed and exhausted to calm and equipped leaders who actually love being in ministry. And today, pray for me. Pray for me. I have my pastor on as a guest, and I'm just going to let him introduce himself, sir.
Well, thank you, Sister Monique. I'm Freddie Nathan Tellis. I'm the pastor of Allen Chapel AME Church here in Pensacola, Florida, and I am the longest tenured pastor of Allen Chapel in anybody's memory since the 60s, and I've been at Allen Chapel now for almost 10 years. And it's the fifth church that I've been privileged, humbled, and honored to pastor. And and what you want to know anything about my background? What else you want to know?
That's all. We'll probably get into that a little later. So thank you. Like I said, y'all pray for me.
No judgment. No judgment.
So, you know that you and I have talked several times about the plight of a pastor and how it's a job. It really is a job. And over here we talk about burnout prevention, and we're trying to have the conversation about burnout within the ministry because it's really not talked about often. And we have lost too many pastors from either suicide or just from ailments that came about because of the stress that they were not able to manage. So,
yeah.
What would you say your definition of ministry burnout is?
It is a level of frustration when you feel you're doing all you can, but it never seems to be good enough. It's when you feel that you're pushing the wagon, you're pulling the wagon, and you're steering the wagon. And it's a frustration. It's a feeling that does anybody really care? And burnout, frustration, burnout in ministry is waking up at 4:00 in the morning after couldn't get any sleep till around midnight. And then can't get back to sleep because the things are running in your head. And it makes you, it's a frustration that makes you second guess your calling. And that's dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And so have you experienced burnout? And if you did, what did it look like? Because I feel like a lot of pastors are currently dealing with burnout, but they don't know what the signs are.
I think, well, yes, I have dealt with it. And the signs are some of the things I said. You can't get proper rest.
Yeah.
You may be in bed for 6 or 7 or 8 hours, but you're waking up 3 and 4 times.
Yeah.
So your sleep is disturbed. And you don't know why that's happening. Well, it's the subconscious things in the back of your mind. It's talking with your spouse or with a friend, and your mind wanders to ministry work because you're not compartmentalizing your life, and things begin to run in each other. It's like when my wife was teaching me how to wash clothes. I learned not to put a red t-shirt with white clothing, okay? And things ran all over the place. Right. And so you find yourself distracted a lot.
Yeah.
You can be, I'm looking at you and talking to you, and while you're talking, you can look at me and see my eyes kind of stare off into space. I mean, those to me are some of the common signs. Other signs that may not be prevalent all the time, like I have a blood pressure cuff, and I frequently lay in the bed, relax for a few minutes, take my blood pressure, make sure it's within the right parameters. Well, maybe sometimes things are happening and your blood pressure may shoot up, and if you're checking it, you can monitor it. So, but for different people, I'm pretty sure there are different things, but quick to anger.
Yeah.
You know, your spouse or your child or your friend can say the slightest little thing that most days you wouldn't think about, but for whatever reason, it sets you off.
Right.
So those are things that I have experienced, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other pastors have gone through some of the same things.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I don't feel like they know, like they can't verbalize what burnout is, or even know what burnout is, period. And let alone ministry burnout, because you feel like when you're in the church, you are working for God. It should be all happy and no stress and everything's just wonderful.
And I'll tell you this, you may feel like that, but you will be told that by a bunch of people.
Right.
Oh, you're a man of God. Well, you know, they nailed Jesus to the cross and you're not him, and nobody's nailing you. And they forget that you're a human
being. Exactly.
So if you don't remind yourself of that, you get reminded by plenty of people all the time.
Right. That is so true. And I mentioned on a few episodes that the role of a pastor is really like a caregiver. They take on everybody's problems.
Yes.
They literally take on everybody's problems. And so I would like to ask you though, because I feel like I was having this discussion with, I think it was Dr. Kendra. And we were talking about pastors being treated like they're God, meaning the congregants will take all their cares and leave it with the pastor, right? Do you feel like that is something that the congregation put on the pastors, or do you feel like there are some pastors who literally kind of have that air of I'm God? What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Both. I think we need to be very careful about portraying ourselves as always having the answer. Right. And we never have a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I dealt with PTSD from 3 combat tours in my military time. And I'm not ashamed to tell people that I went to see a therapist, professional psychiatrist. I had 5 appointments and it helped me immensely. We also want to take on an air of invincibility, and we act like our life is perfect and we have no issues. And that's the air that we project. And so if you project that all the time, people feel like they can keep coming.
Right.
I don't want to ever do that.
Right.
But I don't want people to feel like they can't approach me. I think approachability in ministry has got to be near the top of your list. Because if people feel like they can't talk to their pastor, one example, I went to, and you know, I'm not using names, but I went to visit a member of our church mother who was a member of a different church. And I would often, you know, visit, and this person was in the hospital. And while I was there, a deacon from the church came to see her. And so I was there, and this is my pastor, blah, and so he said, well, has our pastor? He said, no, her pastor hadn't come, but my pastor has. And so, of course, the next day, that pastor did come, but people will keep coming to you. You want them to come to you. You want them to share. but you don't want them to look at you as being in place of God. So it's very important that you let them know, listen, thank you for sharing. I'm going to pray with you. I need you to continue to go to God and give it to God.
Right.
I'm simply a conduit. I am not him. I'm not close.
Right.
So, but you cannot have an air of invincibility or an air of perfectness, if that's the word, perfectness, because you aren't.
Yeah.
But you still have to be approachable.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You do have to be approachable. And you're right. That is so important in ministry. And also, you speak about being approachable. I feel like a lot of pastors don't understand how to create boundaries because yes, you need to be approachable.
Are you talking about me?
No, of course not.
I have that issue at times. But see, with that also comes another problem, because everything that the pastor says is magnified. So if you casually joke about something, people can take that the wrong way. I can say the same thing to 5 different people and they'll take it 5 different ways. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I have learned that I can be friendly without being friends. Right. If that makes sense. Yeah. So that's a boundary that I have learned. You can't be overly friendly. You have to, you just can't. There's a difference between you and I. I can be friendly with you you're a congregant and I'm your pastor, but you're not my best friend. So you have to have that boundary. It has to be, and then sometimes people will get very familiar with you and feel like they can say anything. I had a person say something, I said, hold up now, I'm still your pastor. You can't just say those words. So you have to kind of like rein it in. Yeah. Boundaries are very important.
Yes, they are. Boundaries are very important. Another thing that we've mentioned on this podcast is how pastors don't, and this goes around boundaries. Pastors aren't taking time off. You and I talked last night, and you are going to be taking some time off, which I'm very, very happy about. We've had many conversations.
Yes, we have.
About you taking some time off. And I feel like that's one of the things that pastors don't do enough of. They feel like, for the lay people, the weekends are a time of chilling out. For church folk, particularly pastors, is you're working, you're preparing for sermons, there's a ton of things to do on the weekend. So the weekends and if you have a job and you're a pastor,
yeah,
it's hard.
Well, I think a lot of congregants, when they see the pastor, they see him on Sunday, and the other 6 days they have little to no contact, maybe right. Bible study or whatever. But what they don't see, for me, Mondays is a day that I like to relax a little bit in the morning. And then my wife, she's, they have these love languages. My wife's is togetherness. I get what it's called. And so I'll get in the vehicle, I'll go to the dry cleaner, I'll go to the store, I'll do this. So I make a little route, and I'm 3-4 hours. That's normal. But I get phone calls and text messages and emails throughout the day, 7 days a week. Right. I've had people literally call me 5 or 10 minutes before I'm going to the pulpit, and I really want no distractions. But they don't see like a 20 or 25-minute sermon. I feel if you do it the right way, and the way I was taught by several people, my professors and my pastor, a 20 to 30-minute sermon takes me several hours a week, because I want to make sure it's right. But I'm making phone calls, I'm visiting, a lot of input. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the downtown clergy, and we talked about sponsoring families from the Ukraine. So there's a lot of things that the typical congregant does not see. So they really think you only work on Sundays.
Sunday.
Yeah. And so the rest of the time, you over here like that sign that says about a fire extinguisher in case of emergency, break glass.
Right.
But they think you're somewhere waiting for them to approach.
Exactly.
But you really, if you're doing it right and you're trying to do the best you can, you really have a lot of hours invested during the week.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. I've also mentioned on here, and I try to teach my clients, is to have those conversations. There should be planning meetings with hopefully you have an admin, you have a leadership team that you talk to and plan with, and then you guys sit down, whether it be weekly or monthly, especially at the end. Our conference year is about to wind down in AME Church. So, once you begin your new conference year, sit down and talk about time off. What does that look like? What hours are you going to be available? And I think once that conversation is had with your leadership and your admin, then you can have some more flexibility. You can have some time off during the week. You should have time off during the day, even if it is a working day. Let's say you work, we'll say Wednesday through Sunday. And there should be times during those working days that you have some time off. You have a lunch break away from work, not a working lunch break, but away from work. A couple of, 15-minute breaks here or there just to go outside, walk around, do some yoga, do some deep breathing or something, just to be at peace.
Yes. For me, I can't sit around and do nothing. That's boring and it's frustrating. So I have to be doing something, even if it's simply playing solitaire on my phone, something. Or I go out in the backyard and I sit in the gazebo and look at the roses and just, meditate for a little bit or read something so that your mind can relax.
Yeah.
I literally don't have an off day. 7 days, I'm approachable. You can reach me, but I have time doing all that. And my phone, when it's time to go to bed, do not disturb goes on, and it stays on until I turn it back on the next day. Mm-hmm. So I don't take calls at night. Now this may sound harsh. No, I'm not gonna. It may sound harsh, and you may want to edit it out. If somebody passes away at 2 o'clock, at 4 o'clock in the morning, they'll still be passed away at 7 o'clock. So that's something
you can do at 2 or 4 o'clock.
What can I do?
Yeah, nothing.
I can't do anything, but I still, and for me to do nothing, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I've tried it. It doesn't work. But I do know it's important. When if I take my wife out to lunch or we go to a movie, I leave my phone in the car. I leave it in the car. For that 2 hours I'm in a movie, I'm not reachable. If we go out for lunch or dinner, I turn my phone off or I leave it in the car. Because I don't want that time with my wife to be disturbed. I think that's important. So Absolutely. There are many ways throughout the day that you can turn off or you can tune down.
Absolutely.
That will not impact ministry.
Yeah. And so when you've done that, what happened? Did the world end?
No.
See?
In fact, when I came out the movie, everything, the car was still in where I parked it.
Right.
I may have a missed call and I return the call and everything is fine.
Everything was fine.
But that's another thing, Monique. Pastors, we have a tendency to feel that if I'm not there, the church will fall apart. Right. And a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, about 5 years ago, he came home late, about 8 o'clock at night from doing ministry. He sat in his recliner, he pulled the recliner back, put the TV on, and he passed away. And he was overweight, and he had high blood pressure, and it was cholesterol was through the roof. And it was all because he did not take care of himself.
Yeah.
He never had an off button.
Yeah.
So if we don't learn from that,
Yeah.
we will repeat those mistakes.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
And when I have been gone and I've been out of the pulpit on a Sunday, I remember one time I was literally gone for 2 complete weeks. And I got back, and the next day after I unpacked, I literally got in the car and drove down to the church. Just circled the parking lot and went home. Like, why did I do that? Did I think the church was not gonna be there?
Like it's gonna you'd be gone. Right.
You know, oh man, God, if I'm not there, or maybe one of the ministers will preach better than me.
Oh, don't go there.
Oh, we have some of us have that attitude. Every one of the people we have at our church preaches better than me, and I have no problem with it. I love it. I love the different perspectives, you know.
Right.
I love to be preached to. I don't need to be the one to do it. That's an ego thing that pastors have to really get over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, because so many pastors need to hear that from another pastor. I can talk about it all day, but when they hear from another pastor who is taking time off, spending some quality time with your family, taking your phone, putting it on silent or leaving it in the car while you are present with your family is a blessing.
That's one of the signs of ministry burnout. If you leave your phone in the car and you're eating dinner with your spouse or your husband or wife, and you're talking and you wander away,
yeah,
they know it and they can feel hurt.
Exactly.
I want to share this with you. Not long after I got to Allen Chapel, one of our stewards passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on vacation with my high school graduating class in Fort Lauderdale. And I actually flew back. We were supposed to drive back on Sunday, but I flew back on Saturday to do that funeral because I really felt I had to, because this was a key member of the church, a big supporter of us. And my wife came back with the group. Now, my wife didn't have a problem with that because I've always made it up.
Yeah.
But you will lose your family. You will lose your children. You will lose your spouse.
Yeah.
If they are neglected in the name of the church.
Right.
Your children will resent the church and they will leave the church.
And that has happened.
Maybe looking at a divorce.
Right.
Oh, it happened many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
Absolutely. So when you were dealing with burnout, do you feel like you've recovered, or and if you have, what else are you doing? Or what else what was the one thing you felt like was the thing that helped you recover from burnout?
A pastor that's been doing it for a long time once told me this. You know, we always say the work is all divine. We all say that. So he said, remember this, Pastor Tellis, the work is all divine, but the people belong to God.
Right.
They're not my people. In fact, you already know this, but I have been intentional about changing our pronouns. It's not my church,
right?
My choir, my usher. It's not mine. I didn't die for this. There's no nail prints. So I've been trying to say our choir, our trustees, our stewards, our church, not mine.
Right.
So we have to change our terminology. As far as recovery from burnout, I think there's always going to be a little frustration below the surface, but it's manageable and it's not my focus. Ministry can be fun. But when you realize that everybody in the church is not gonna have your passion, it's like if you own a business and you have employees, your employees are not gonna be as invested in the company as you. They're employees.
Right.
You own it. You love it. Oh, this is great. They don't have that passion because it's not theirs. Now you can empower them, but it's not yours. So for me, I have to remind myself that I can be very passionate about a project, and some people will and some won't, but I cannot let those that don't affect me.
Yeah.
Or the way I feel about them.
Yeah.
So listening to you over the years and other pastors who've been down the road, and then in the last few years, I have definitely been intentional about time off.
Good.
And intentional about leaving the phone in airplane mode for a week. But having people in place that if something comes up,
Right.
somebody can handle it.
Right.
And I will share this with you too. At our last charge, I had a large number. Well, for people that don't know, in the Methodist Church, the stewards are what you would call deacons in other denominations, except that we have women as well as men that are stewards. And I had a great board of stewards at my last charge, but the board of stewards I have, that we have, not me, that we have now is a great group of people, and they're so diverse. They're so different.
Yeah.
And so they do a great job of protecting me. And so if I'm not around, they take the reins. And in my first 2 years here, I felt I needed to be here for everything. But after a couple of years and learning the people and the people learning me, I know I don't have to be here for everything.
Right.
And so that's a big help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having good people,
Yep.
a good ministerial staff, and having a good board of stewards goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned having good people on your team.
Mm-hmm.
That is so important, whether it be a business or your church, you have to have good people on your team.
Yeah.
I know you don't have an assistant, but I am encouraging pastors to have a good assistant as well, whether it be someone from the church, whether it be a virtual assistant, someone that is not a member of your church, but just having someone else to handle administrative tasks and a lot of that communication, email management, things of that nature can take another load off that can really free up some time. You mentioned earlier about some training that you received and schooling and instructors that you had. I am hoping that in the future, like the very near future, seminaries, the Ministerial Institute that we have as well could encourage pastors to learn more about burnout prevention. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm on the Institute and I teach Old Testament to second-year students. I have given suggestions about how to do some of these things, but we are so traditionalized.
Yep.
It's hard to do new things. But I also think we should encourage ministers and pastors to do things that are out of the norm. Everyone should take an exercise class. Everyone should go out at least 3 times a week, and if they don't do anything but walk around their yard.
Exactly.
Exercise, yoga is a big deal. All of those things, physicality is so important. Yeah. Massages,
Absolutely.
I give massages frequently.
Yeah.
I go to a chiropractor every now and then to make sure that everything is adjusted. And you need to read things that are not the Bible.
Exactly.
I mean, I go to movies that maybe the church wouldn't like me to go. Maybe y'all need to pray for me more.
Yeah.
But I go to movies for entertainment. It don't have to
Right.
be a Bible-based
Right.
movie.
Right.
And like again, yoga is another big thing that we can do. And I know we don't like to talk about that, but the chanting and the chants that the Far Eastern people or the Far Eastern people who started that are things that we don't do. But you don't have to do that. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah. Take up knitting.
Yeah, something.
Anything that will occupy your mind.
Right, and get it off of the stress.
I'm a reader. I love to read. Let me say this, Monique. This is one thing that's helped me. One of the members of our church gave me a book, The 4 Agreements. Mm. It was hard to get started, but it's don't take anything. The first one is keep your words impeccable. Don't say anything that hurt anybody. Don't take anything personal. Mm-hmm. Do your best. Don't make judgments. Mm-hmm. So those are the 4 main things. So when people say things negative or whatever, don't take it personal. Yep. Don't make a judgment because they may be having a horrible day. Yeah. And so that book helped me immensely because I would take things personal. If Monique said something to me, I would take it, but maybe Monique is having a bad day. Maybe Monique's mom is not feeling well and she's frustrated. Yeah. And she says, I can't take that personal. Yeah. Because you don't know the pain or what that person is dealing with. Yeah. So those are things that help tremendously. Yeah, that's really, really good. I am hoping that someone who is, at some ministerial institute or seminary would include some type of training around stress management, because if you can manage the stress, then it will not lead to burnout. And so I'm hoping. I'll tell you this. Mm-hmm. I've been teaching in the institute for 14 years. And although I'm teaching Old Testament, I sometimes very often preach a little bit. And all of my former students can tell you I talk about a lot of things in our time that don't necessarily deal with the Old Testament. Yeah. I talk about this. I talk about you must have someone that you can go to that you trust. Yeah. If it's not your pastor, another minister who's been around for a while. If you want to call me. And I've had former students call me about different things that they couldn't talk to anybody else about. Yeah. And so if I can't get them to formally change the instruction, I'll ease it in myself a little bit. I make no apologies for that. That is so good. I've a few past guests that I've had mentioned that there is some type of pastoral care course or something, but just from the pastors I've spoken to, I don't know what they're teaching in pastoral care, but thank you. Thank you. We're missing the mark a little bit, I feel. I really do. I had a class in seminary, and the class, my classes were around, I think 13 or 14 weeks long. Wow. And it wasn't entitled pastoral care, but it talked about managing grief. Mm. When you fall in love with a congregation as a pastor, and you have to preach that loved one's funeral. Yeah. A lot of times it's like you're preaching your family member. Yeah. So you have to deal with that. So those type of things. So that class helped out a lot. I had to write a paper on it. I had to go to Sacred Heart and get information about their outreach, ministries and how you talk to people who are homeless. And So some of the classes in seminary kind of deal with it in a roundabout way, but it's about how to manage it with other people. We need a class, how do I take care of me?
Right.
That I don't put a gun in my mouth, that I don't overdose on pills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the pastoral care I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you, you mentioned you're teaching, I think you said second year students.
Mm-hmm.
So how many, it's 4 years, is it a 4 year? I can't remember. It's been so long since I was.
If you're not in seminary, it's actually 5 years. There's a class of admissions.
Right.
First year, second year, third year, fourth year.
Right.
So the class that I teach, they're second year students.
Gotcha.
So they've actually been in now their third year.
Gotcha.
So they're called second year. And those students, like the last one I had last year, the 4 young preachers I had in my class, all of them have their bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will be ordained in the annual conference coming up.
Gotcha.
Like I had the 4 of them to come and preach our Holy Week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one of the best classes I've ever had in 14 years.
Right.
All 4 of those young preachers, they have good backgrounds, they're humble, they're one of them is actually a pastor. She's filling in because she's not ordained.
Right.
Excuse me. But all 3 of those young preachers are doing very well. And I am so proud of them and how they've grown in the year that I've had them. It's just amazing. So I'm really looking forward to the 4 of those preachers doing great and wonderful things.
Nice. What would be the first advice you would give to a new pastor?
A new pastor?
Mm-hmm. A new pastor.
Don't take what the congregation or certain people in the congregation tell you personally.
Yeah.
I went to I'll never forget this, at my 3rd church, my first Sunday there, my wife always sits on the 2nd pew so that I can see her. Well, this older lady said, well, our first ladies always sit over here. And my wife said, thank you, but I sit here. So the lady acted as though she was offended, but I think she respected my wife. Mm-hmm. And then they will come to you as a pastor and tell you, this is how we do things here.
Right.
And I would tell that pastor, just nod your head and smile and say, thank you for your input. Yeah. Say it friendly, but say it firmly so that they know that you're serious about the work.
Yeah. And
the next thing I would tell them is invest in the congregation and the church, but don't over-invest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Give it all that you have, but don't go overboard.
Yeah. Because
you will either leave there one of 3 ways. You will get moved to another church, or you will retire, or you will die. So you're going to leave that church one way or the other.
Right.
And so you want to be all in, but you don't want to be overly, you don't want to be, because some of them are trying to make such a good impression that they do too much. Mm-hmm. And the people know you're doing too much. Yeah. You're not their first pastor.
Right.
One beautiful old lady told me, she said, because it's a small church and it was my first church. And she said, we are daycare for new pastors.
Ooh.
But
okay.
she said, because they always send the new ones to us to train.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, I'm glad you're here to train me. I appreciate that. And she laughed. Now,
I don't like that analogy.
she passed away last year. Oh. And I had not been her pastor for 17 years.
Wow.
But she told her sons to make sure that they get me to preach her eulogy. Wow. And I did. I went back to preach her eulogy.
Gotcha.
But she didn't say it in a mean way.
I know. I'm just saying.
She said, yeah, we are daycare for new pastors. They send y'all to us to train y'all.
Right. Wow.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I have had so many different things said to me, and I just have to let it roll off my back.
Yeah.
Like water off a duck's back.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. And that's one of the ways to prevent burnout. Like you've mentioned several times, you just gotta let stuff go. You really, really do. I would say for new pastors, I would really, really encourage new pastors to seek out your leadership team, and get some help. Whether, as I mentioned, an admin from your church or a virtual assistant, but you shouldn't be doing a bunch of clerical administrative tasks.
I learned that the hard way. You know what? I forgot one thing. The third thing I would tell a new pastor is don't forget you have a family.
Yes.
This is what you do. Your family is who you are.
Right.
And when this is gone and it's old, you may be 21 years old, and you may do it for the next 50 years. But when you retire, where's your family?
Right.
That's nothing I want to. But you mentioned about about not doing too much. At one of the churches I went to, I didn't particularly like the way the program was being done. So I started doing it to show them, and then guess who wound up doing it every week and making all the copies? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And what you'll find is everything that you will do, they will stop doing, and they will gladly stop doing it.
Exactly. And they will let you do it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things when I say don't overinvest, let them do their job. If you go out there and cut the grass, they'll stop.
Yep. Sure
if you clean the bathrooms, they'll stop.
Sure
if you print the programs, they'll stop.
Absolutely.
Don't overinvest.
Absolutely.
Now, I must confess, I was told these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to learn the hard way.
And you're doing a lot better.
A lot better.
We're so proud of you.
Because, like in the book of Acts, when the Greeks came to the apostles and said, our widows are not being treated fairly, what you gonna do about it? And they said, look, our job should not be distributing food. So you pick some people for the Spirit.
Right.
Because we must devote ourselves to meditation, prayer, and preaching and teaching the word. I can't preach and teach effectively if I'm mopping the floors and vacuuming the carpet.
Absolutely.
And printing programs.
Absolutely. And if you're doing all of that, I guarantee you there are people in the church that have that gift.
Yes.
You've got to find out who they are and let them operate in their gift of cleaning.
Yes. You're not the be all end all. You're not God. You just need a little while to go. You can't have a God complex. And if they do the program and you don't particularly like it, don't say anything right then. Just say, hey, Monique, I love the way you did this, but can we change this? Can we do a little, there are ways that you can approach people without offending them. Absolutely.
When I was in sales years ago, they said that you do a went well, a next time, and another went well. So you tell them what they did great, you add in what you can change next time, and then you end it with another went well. Like you sandwich your whatever the ask is between compliments, and it just makes that castor oil go down a little easier.
It does. It should probably be 20% of the negative and 80% of the positive, and build them up to go back out again.
Yeah, absolutely. Because church members are volunteers; they don't have to do anything.
There you go.
But as you mentioned love languages earlier, it's a relationship. So once you find out what that member's love language is, that's how you will approach that person. And each one of them is different. Just make a note of who likes praise, public praise, you know, and they make sure you praise them publicly. Some people don't want all of that. Then you make sure you do what they need. But once you find out that groups, that individuals love language, just start doing that. And you can get more out of those volunteers, because that's what they are, than you ever thought.
Well, 8.5 years ago, a certain person told me, you know, you got to treat it like a coach on a team. You know, you got to encourage them to get out there and do better. Don't think I didn't write that down. Should I tell you who told me that?
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
But I wrote that down, and I have a notebook that has all kind of things in it. So it is, again, it's like you own a business. You cannot expect for the employees to be all in like you are. Yeah. The pastor, you know, and I'm not there because I have to be there. I'm there because I love ministry. I love to preach. I love to teach. To me, the greatest job descriptive word in the world is pastor. Mm-hmm. And people can say 3 words. They can say, that's my pastor. Or they can say, that's my pastor. Same 3 words, totally different context. So you want them to be the former, not the latter.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm happy you referenced businesses, because I talk about that all the time. And that is just kind of taboo in the church. You know, some people don't want you to think of the church as it is a business. It really is.
The church is an organization and an organism.
Exactly.
It's both. Exactly. And you can, it has to be treated as an organization. You can do it in a holy way. You can do it in a godly fashion, but you can't just, the Lord does not want us to simply pray about something and then don't do anything. That's why you have feet. You get up off your knees and put your faith to your feet.
Exactly.
It's an organization and it's an organism.
Exactly. Exactly. So true. So true. And there are a lot of companies that are finally taking on church-like characteristics. Mm. I remember the last company that I worked for, we prayed before meetings. And it was so refreshing to begin a meeting with prayer, finding out what that team members' likes and dislikes are. Those things are sort of popular now in business, but those are things that I feel like we've kind of not done much in the church anymore. Right. And it's caused a lot of division in the church. People don't want, there's a lot of church hurt. We can talk. Yeah, I may have to bring you back on to talk about church hurt, because you and I.
Oh my goodness.
That's a whole nother.
And we definitely can, because church hurt contributes to pastors' burnout.
Yes.
Because people think they can say anything to you any way they want to say it.
Yeah.
That contributes to it too.
And then I have the flip side. I've had pastors do that to me. Feel like they can say and do whatever they want to me. And you know, it's
and I will never understand that.
Yeah.
I will never understand that, because
they dress it up as correction.
But there's a way to correct without hurting. I mean, there's a way to do everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I so agree. I so agree. We're almost at time. I try not to let this go too long. You and I literally can talk forever. So I may have to bring you back on when you're done with all your vacationing. We'll have to put our calendars together.
It's a key year. This whole year, I'm dedicating it to celebrating my wife and our wedding anniversary. So
happy.
And our last event happens in December. So I will have to go home and let my wallet breathe and do some CPR to my credit.
Right. Your wallet's gonna be burned out.
It already is.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor, for coming on and sharing what you're doing. Sharing that you admitting you're taking vacation. I think that's huge. If pastors don't get anything else out of this, I hope they understand it's okay.
It's okay. And if you think you're so indispensable, don't you mess up and die.
Yep.
Or you'll find out that you'll be replaced the following Sunday.
Quick.
Monique, I think that needs to be our primary focus, is that pastors have to understand that they are not perfect, they're not God, and they're not indispensable.
Yeah.
Once you really let that sink in, because I can be a more effective pastor if I'm healthy, if I'm eating right, if I'm rested, I can be more effective.
Yeah.
You can't be effective if you're tired.
You cannot.
You can't be, oh, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. What am I going to preach about tomorrow? You're not effective.
Not at all. Not at all. And what pastors don't realize is that you're not fooling anybody.
Oh.
We all see it.
You can tell.
Right. You can tell. So thank you again. So tell everyone where they can reach you.
Well, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. Just put my last name in, you'll find me everywhere. I like to believe that I'm an open guy, that, and I learned one thing too. I learned not to build trust in people. I learned to just simply trust immediately, because the energy it takes to build it, if they let you down, it's that much energy to come off of it. So I just trust.
Yeah.
And you show me who you are, I believe you the first time.
Yep.
But you can reach me at all them platforms. Allen Chapel AME Church Pensacola, our Facebook page. I'm out there. And especially if you're a pastor and just want to talk.
Yeah.
I believe pastors need a praying partner that's not their family.
Right.
They need to talk to people who are like-minded, who are in ministry, that they can share.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The wrong way.
Absolutely. Well, I will put all of that in the notes. I would definitely put Allen Chapel's information, because you can definitely find Pastor Tellis on that page, as well as our Instagram. So I will put that on in the show notes. But again, thank you so much. This was I made it.
Well, look, I was stressing about the questions, what is she gonna ask me? But you've known me, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
I've known you for over half your life. Think about that.
I know.
So, I just have to be me and let the chips fall where they may.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Well, thank you again, sir. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Well, that is all, everyone. We will talk to you next time. Bye.